This is Bringing the Darkness to the Light with Catherine Nadal, professional psychic medium.
Today's guest is Drew Lowe. He is a professional musician, guitarist, producer, and songwriter. His career highlights include Wembley Arena, Download Festival Main Stage, Hellfest Main Stage, Wacken, Hammersmith Apollo, supporting acts such as Steel Panther, We Will Rock You, Dominion Theatre London, Rock of Ages, UK, International Tour, and more recently has been playing with Boy George and Culture Club. Drew has been consistently depping for the last 9 years in the UK. Number one Bon Jovi tribute band, BONGIOVI, which has led him to play in some of the most prestigious venues in the world. Drew has over 20 years' experience playing and performing shows since the age of 12. Currently, Drew is busy on tour playing with bass player extraordinaire Marco Mendoza from Whitesnake, Thin Lizzy, Ted Nugent, and the Dead Daises. It's a pleasure to have you on, Drew.
Thank you, Catherine. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's such an impressive resume, and you're so exciting. I've watched a lot of your stuff on YouTube, and I've seen a lot of your interviews, and you're really like fascinating guy.
No, thank you. It's funny when you sort of read that back because I was like, it's only when someone reads stuff back you kind of go, oh, yeah, I did some things like that and bits and bobs. I don't really think behind. So I'm always sort of moving forward. So you just kind of, it's almost like embarrassing sometimes when you sort of hear it back. You're like, oh, yeah, cool.
Yeah, but it's good sometimes to hear everything that you've been through. You know, it's like it's a good life review.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely been interesting so far. I'm sure there's more to come though. That's the exciting bit.
Absolutely, yeah. So how did you start out? Like where did your family come from, or were they musicians, or how did you get involved in all this?
Yeah, so um I'm the youngest of it's only me and my older brother. So my brother is a drummer, or was a drummer, not anymore, but he was. So he's a big influence on my life. Um, but going sort of back a little bit further, I'm sort of from a line of bass players, and that sort of goes up to my great great granddad, I believe. Not entirely sure. It might be my great or my great great. But anyway, my mum's dad was a bass player, gas man by day, bass player by evening. And I never got to meet him, unfortunately, because he passed away before I was born. Um, and he used to play in like the swing bands and things like that. My great granddad apparently used to play. I don't know my great granddad, but great, but one of them played in the silent movies. So he used to have like the orchestra pits and things like that before there was sound in films. This is all on my mum's side. My dad's side is completely tone deaf. So it's clearly all kind of been passed down through my mum's side, and it was all bass players. And my uncle was a bass player, and I have a cousin who's a bass player as well, who I was have been in bands with in the past. And yeah, so there's this like bass player line, and then it kind of splits out on this whatever this generation is. It was me, my brother, cousin bass player, and a few of the others did play, but it was only sort of like three of us that kind of took it really seriously. But it was predominantly really my influence was my brother because he's a bit older. He's about 6, 7 years older than me, and he was born in '76. So you know the mid '80s and stuff was very guitar orientated and rock bands. And I was a little kid at the time, a little 5 year old, and it eventually wound up in my hands as a 7 year old playing the guitar and having sort of my first lessons as a 7, 8 year old, and I haven't really stopped in a while. But that's my family. It's a funny little family history actually, because I know a lot of people where they sort of just go, there is no musical influence. I just picked up the guitar because I enjoyed it. Whereas with me, it's definitely sort of gone through the bloodline a little bit. But you know, you would think that it would just not come from anywhere. But I think sometimes it is in the DNA or something, or especially bass, and the bass was like a big part of my life. Like mum used to play me all the mum was born in the 50s, so it was all the Motown, and I grew up with Motown and Beatles, just songwriting,
Oh, wow, that's
sort
so
of
interesting. So
heavy bass lines.
both sides
Yeah,
of the family are always from the UK, like, or are they?
yeah.
And your mom's side was from what, England or?
Yeah, we're all English. Yeah, we're all completely English. And mum's from sort of mum and dad are from southwest, a place called Somerset, which is a bit more of the southwest, a bit further down to the left. We're all Southerners, really. So,
Oh, wow.
but
Yeah.
yeah, it was always. But having the older brother was really influential. Like he he was so influential, really, in shaping my music tastes. He's the real hero, really. My older brother's about 7 years older, so we were right in the 80s. Well, he was. I mean, I kind of caught the tail end of it. I was born in sort of mid 80s, but he was, yeah, he was great. There was tons of music about around that time, lots of rock bands and lots of
Who
great
was he
music.
playing with?
My brother, yeah, not no one like of any kind of substance. I mean, he did get a record deal in his sort of late 20s, and he was in a band, and then he sort of did the usual thing, was like, oh, it's probably not going to work. So, and he left and, decided to not have that career. He decided to have a different career. But yeah, he's just a fantastic musician, really. I still rate him now above a lot of players that I play with that are quite unquote professional. But some people just don't choose their path like that.
Yeah, that I understand.
Yeah.
Well, it's so interesting, especially the way you talk about the side of the family that this came from, especially since you have proof. Some people don't know what sides of the family, like they could be music on both sides, but to know that it's clearly on your mom's side, but also, to have the guitar, to have the connection with the guitar with other members of the family is kind of really interesting. Did you feel that you were drawn to it at an early age, not just your mom playing the music, but did you remember when you said, I want to play a guitar? Do you remember that
Yeah,
specific
I mean,
time?
it was yeah. There was a couple of guitarists that really kind of caught my ear. So my brother would come home with the albums on cassette or CD or vinyl, as was, and there was a few people that were yeah, I used to watch. We're a big Bon Jovi sort of family, really. Like, so we're really into, like, hence, it was really cool when I got into the Bon Jovi trip band, but we'll talk about that in a bit. But those types of bands really influenced us as kids in the mid 80s, all the Europes and the Bon Jovis, and especially Richie Sambora, who's a massive influence on me. Um, and my brother and his friends used to bring back all the videos from back in the day, and we used to watch, like, the bands used to release all their videos, didn't they? Like the live at somewhere, or it was great, and we used to watch all these videos, and him and his friend Ben used to come out. He was a guitarist. That's probably why, actually. So my brother's friend Ben, who I'm still really close with and friendly with, played the guitar, and he was a big influence on me. And that was kind of where I was like, oh, look at that, it's a guitar. So he used to come over the house and have his guitars, and I used to pick them up and be like, oh wow, like, I really want to do this. And it was just so influential for me, like the whole thing. It was amazing. Yeah, absolutely loved it.
Wow, that's so interesting. I know you had mentioned that you were born in the 80s. I'm much older than you, but in the 80s was when we were really like connecting with MTV here in the States.
Yeah.
And
Mm,
not just hearing the bands like on the radio, but actually seeing them do a video,
yeah.
and it really
Yeah.
was an explosion, I think, in music in that regard. And like in
Yeah, it was.
1985, like that particular year around 1985, I
Yeah.
clearly remember them using so much music in movies. And that's actually what made us go to the movies. Like Madonna was in
Yeah.
some movies, and other songs that were
Yeah.
popping up, like The Breakfast Club, and a lot of like famous movies during that time was using a lot of music.
Yeah. It was all tied in, and it was all tied in with pop culture, and it was such a big, huge time for music. It was such an explosion of lots of different styles of music, and it represented youth, and it does it just now I'm older, and I look back, and I'm starting to turn into that guy now, where I'm like, oh, it doesn't sound like it did back when I was young. I'm turning into that guy, of course. And I genuinely don't think it does, because the kids I meet that want to learn guitar and stuff, they all go back to the old stuff, don't they? So I think, well, there's something to be said in that, a little bit. But
Yeah.
definitely, it's a very different time now for music compared to, like, especially the explosion in the 80s, where it was just about everything was excess, and selling lots of records, and just it was good. It was a really positive time
Yeah, it
for
really
art
was.
and music.
It was. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. What was the first band that you were in? Do you remember that?
First band I was into. it probably would have been stuff like, I mean, before I picked, I had this conversation with my friend the other day. I was like, "What did you listen to before you played music?" And obviously, when I discovered rock music in the sort of mid to late 80s, that was always kind of there, but that was still part of pop culture. Especially the Bon Jovis in the Europes, it was still mass pop culture. It wasn't like I was into Dio, or anything like that. I wasn't quite into the heavier, like, quite yet. I got into the heavier stuff later on. I wasn't into Black Sabbath and Zeppelin or anything. It was the pop stuff, and that's probably why I like the Beatles. So I think growing up, it was some of the first music I heard was the Beatles. And my dad saw the Beatles in the 60s. So, and the Stones. I've got some I've got records over there. I've got some of my parents' record collection. John Denver. I know I've got weird stuff like Crosby, Stills and Nash. I've got
Oh,
all
that's
these
great
sort of,
stuff. Wow.
yeah, honestly, I've got all these records that I didn't think sort of influenced me, but it was only because, like, it's when I sort of go back to stuff, I go, oh, actually, yeah. And it's the songwriting. It's always the songs, like pop songs. That's why I can never get into Led Zeppelin, because their songs go on, they don't finish. They just jam at the end, and I get really bored
Yes,
of that.
they go
Whereas,
forever.
like, the Beatles and the Beatles and the Stones, and it was all these formulaic songs. So that was some of the early music, and then obviously Bon Jovi's in the Europes and things like that. So it was all kind of intermingled. Having the older brother coming, walking in. Mum always likes to remind us. She goes, "It was your brother that came home with a copy of Slippery When Wet." Michael Jackson, obviously, like just the pop culture of that. I was a little kid when that was going around, when Bad and Thriller. I got into Thriller later on because that came out when I was born, but certainly the Bad album and Dangerous, and again the pop songwriting. It was
Oh,
it
yeah.
was it was it was so good.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. I'm just trying to think what else. I mean, I've got so many albums down there, and there was a lot of British pop bands that were great. I was really into an artist called we were growing up. There's an artist called Shakin' Stevens. I doubt if he broke in America, but he was a bit like a poppy Elvis,
Oh,
but in
wow.
the 80s. But he just wrote these great pop songs. He wrote that Merry Christmas Everyone song, and he had a big Christmas hit. But his songs are great. He said, I've got all his records, and me and my brother were big fans of that growing up, and just real kind of boogie woogie kind of stuff.
Well,
But it was really, but I do have a funny metal period. Like, my brother was really into Iron Maiden, so I
oh,
got really into Iron
wow.
Maiden, and I'm still really into
Sure.
Iron Maiden. And
Yeah.
that was like the kind of only metal band. They were like the first metal band I got into. And of course, I like metal now and stuff, but
Yeah.
certainly, but it was really weird. It was like that was
Wow.
the only metal band I could kind of stomach. It was like Power Slave and all that kind of stuff. So that was always really good fun to listen
What
to.
was your first band that you actually played in that you remember being like a band member of a band?
Oh, yeah. So at 12, I was gigging. I was already gigging when I was 12. So when I first got to senior school, it was like high school in America, I guess. I was about 11, and I met a guy who's still a friend of mine now, called Jamie. Great drummer. Again, doesn't really drum much anymore. But we met, and then that was it. And we started jamming in his dad's front room. And then by the end of the mid 90s, so I started senior school in 94, we were playing the school discos. We were out there playing all the battle of the bands. We did it all. And actually, I still have so many fond memories of that, because we that band kept going all through high school, and it was such a process of, it wasn't just like I was just having a bit of fun. Like, we took it very seriously, and we had very pushy parents. Well, the drummer did. He's still a really close friend now, and we really, and I guess that maybe instilled some of the drive in me to do the thing I want to do. But yeah, we did all sorts of stuff. Became second in battle of the bands, and it was a different time again in the 90s. Lots of bands, everyone was in bands, and locally, it was just, that was the only thing we knew. We used to play and play and play and play all the time as kids. So it was,
What was the name of that
yeah.
band?
Well, it started off, it was called Mother's Boys. Don't ask why. And I'm pretty sure there was a band in the 80s called Mama's Boys as well. So it
Oh,
probably came from
wow.
that. And then it was, we should just do covers, like top 40 songs. And then we changed the name of the band to a name called Feeler, which is weird. I don't know why we called it that. It wasn't my idea. And I did my first recordings with that band, did a CD. Yeah,
Oh,
really good
that's
fun.
exciting.
But it was all like really eye-opening stuff, when you're like
Yeah.
15 or 14 years old, you're like, wow, there's no money involved or anything. It's just you do it because it's just the best thing in the world, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's the best training though, especially when you make mention of,
Yeah.
the parents being very involved because it gives you the sense of
Mm.
professionalism and it's also
Yeah.
that you're performing. You're putting on,
Yeah. I mean,
and your band is tight and your songs are good and you know the idea
yeah.
of timing and when to get on and when to get off and all of that stuff has
Yeah.
to be learned somewhere. So why not have it
Yeah.
learned when you're
You
15 or
can't
12 or
you can't teach that. You can't just teach someone to be on a stage. It's my big problem with Instagram and all the Instagrammers and YouTubers. They struggle when they get on the stage because they've never it's a whole different experience. And it took me a long time. It took me a long, long time before you can't just jump onto big stages. They all think they can do that, all these Instagrammers and stuff, and they can't. It all goes wrong quite quickly. It's such a gradual process of knowing how to be on a stage and perform on a stage. It's whole separate entity to playing music. Playing music on a stage in front of people and entertaining someone. It's learning those ropes, getting those stripes. Takes time. I used to be so
I'm
embarrassed.
so glad that you're talking about this because I actually was in the military for 30 years and the last
Mm,
portion of my career I was a senior instructor and I used to teach other people in the military how to instruct, but instruct in front of a large crowd. You could have 100
mm,
soldiers in a room and you can't teach 100 soldiers the same way you would teach 5 soldiers. You have to be able
no,
to present the material to a large crowd and be able to work the crowd. So even though that's teaching, you can use those same concepts in any concept, just like you being on a stage, a large crowd versus an intimate stage setting.
yeah,
You play probably differently or you perform differently because of the size of the
yeah,
crowd. Would you agree?
yeah, 100%. And also the size of the stage. You got to really utilize it. There was a couple of times on tour recently. So with Marco shows, they're either really small or they're really big. And when we toured with we ended up supporting a guy called Adrian Vandenberg, who was in Whitesnake in the 80s, and he played some very big venues. So and the band's only a trio. There's only three of us. So you have to think, wow, how am I gonna entertain all these people? Versus when you're on a small stage, you can just stand there and not really have to do much. It's a whole different thing, and something I sort of took for granted until like I was like, oh yeah, it's really difficult, doing
Yes,
that.
I think you really
Finding,
bring up so many good points, especially with this concept of the internet. There's so much, I think, false confidence that's being put out there
yeah,
because they're talking to themselves, really. I mean, they think they're talking to the world, but they're really just talking to themselves. And it's
certainly,
a strange
yeah,
process. It's got to do something to them on a thought process, like how do they think of themselves or how are they thinking this will reach someone else's brain or something. It's really interesting. You mentioned Marco Mendoza is a good friend of mine.
yeah.
He has a ton of energy. His shows are incredible and it must be so exciting touring with him. I mean, he's just jam packed with energy all the time.
Yeah, he keeps us busy on the road, definitely. He won't stop. He won't stop until he just drops, I think. Yeah, Marco's great. I mean, Marco's he's been in the industry for a long time. He knows the ropes. So it's really interesting being in a band and learning again from someone else who's done things on a different scale again, on a different level, um, who's kind of widely known and respected as a bass player and musician and all that kind of stuff, which is amazing. It's so hard to become someone, isn't it? Really, like in the music world. But I think when you sort of get to know him and get to meet him, you can see why he's very charismatic and
Yes,
yeah,
very
he'll
creative. He's like a
yeah
super creative person and he just goes with the
yeah
flow. He really goes with the
yeah
flow in a lot of circumstances. Yeah. It's kind of
yeah
interesting.
definitely, and he's got a good heart, and he
Oh, yeah.
and he just wants to write music and and just tour relentlessly.
That's
Well,
true.
what I mean that is that he wants to perform it to the world, and he wants people to hear his songs, and he's got a couple of solo albums. Well, he's got four out, but he's got two. the main two that we're kind of promoting over the last few years, that the more rock ones that he's done. He's
Wow.
really into it, and they're great. They're great. They're great. I'm glad he keeps asking me back to do it. So I must be
Well,
doing
that's a
something right.
huge compliment. Oh, wow. That's such a huge compliment, just to play with him. But with your talent there, too, is just, amazing. So tell me about George and the Culture Club. I was a big fan of them since the 80s.
Yeah.
I know their work really well. It must be fascinating to be with them. So, what was that experience like for you?
Well, that was great. So again, that's a funny story how I got involved with that. It was a bit of a long time coming, really. I don't really work with them so much anymore, but I just had a couple of years. It was sort of before COVID and sort of slightly after COVID, and it was around that kind of time. And I had I know his MD really well. So when I first, bit of a long story. When I first moved to, well, I'll whittle it down. When I first moved to London, I got a job because I need to pay my rent. And I was like, "Oh, I'm going to move to London. I want to play guitar for a living. How am I going to do that? Right, let's go to London. Get a job in a video rental store, like a Blockbuster or something like that. Because that's what I did when I was a kid. I always worked in Blockbuster video. And one of the guys there was a friend of mine called Matt. And we were chatting, and he was a musician as well, but a bit more like a DJ style kind of musician. He was signed, and he was like, "Oh, my brother plays with Boy George, works for Boy George." So I was like, "Really?" I says, "What?" He goes, "Oh, he's like he plays bass and sort of percussion and all that kind of stuff in Culture Club." I was like, "Right, okay." And then for some reason I ended up meeting him. I can't even remember how I met him, but he ended up sort of inviting me up to his studio. And we ended up doing some bits and bobs with him in the end, but not with George. This was just years ago. And then about 12 years ago, I almost stopped playing music. I had a bit of a funny thing. I was getting a bit like burnt out from maybe not succeeding, and getting a bit funny about that stuff. I was in London, a bit sort of feeling just a bit disillusioned and a bit jaded. And yeah, about 13 years ago now. And I got a phone call from I was going to go traveling, and I went traveling a little bit through the summer on my own, and into Spain. And then I got a phone call from Kev just randomly, and he was like, "Drew, what are you up to?" And I was just like, "Well, not a lot, about to go traveling across Spain." And he goes, "Well, do you want to? What are you doing in September?" This was, about when. And he said, "There's a musical called Taboo. So there was a musical in the UK called Taboo, which is basically about George's life. Um, well, and sort of a scene of that time. And there was a club apparently called Taboo, and they all used to go there, like all the new romantic period. It was all born out of that, like Steve Strange and just all that, all the that stuff. Anyway, and it was a musical about his life, sort of, and I ended up playing guitar in that, and that's where I first met George. Anyway, did that for a few years, did loads of other stuff. It kind of set me up it kind of set my career on a bit of a thing. So I was like, oh, cool, wicked. Thanks to Kev. And about 2019, I was on my honeymoon, and because they had a guitarist forever, and he was like actually their musical director for a long time. A guy called John Themis, very sort of well respected guitarist in the UK, done lots of stuff. Greek guy, and he had left apparently Culture Club. He just didn't want to do it anymore. And Kev messaged me and said, "Can you come play guitar?" I was like, "Yeah," and that was it. Really, it was really simple. It was just because it was a bit of a long-winded story, but I just wanted to give you a bit of backstory how I got there. It's not just like I get a random phone call. There's always like a path to this, isn't there? And so I ended up doing some shows, and I ended up playing with George, and then I ended up doing some sessions for him, and I did some shows, and I played Wembley Arena, and well, just some other bits as well. I played in Scotland, big festivals in Scotland, and we did some other stuff. But it was sort of like just as it was about to start, we were about to do some massive USA tour. COVID kind of kicked in, and then that was it. That was the end of that for about a year, and then I did a couple of bits after that. But there was they kind of decided to cut the band back a bit, so I ended up sort of not working with them so much. And I did some other bits after that as well. But I'm still there if they want me, as a phone call, it's fine. But as an experience, it was great, and he's great. He's a very driven bloke. I can see how he got successful. He's always
Wow.
like on the go, Boy
Yeah.
George. Like George is always like next. What I learned, what I learned, what from seeing what he did. it was always like that album's done. What's next? What's next? It's always that what's next attitude. And you know, the past is the past. Let's move forward. Let's do another record. He was a big Bowie fan, huge Bowie fan. A really nice guy, you know. It was great. So that was a great experience, and it was a different sort of level of touring and a different level of playing, and yeah, it was very different for me, for my style of playing, but I can usually fit into that stuff quite well, the pop stuff. Hence, it goes back to the pop stuff again. So, you know, back to that.
I
But
just love that
yeah,
story, though. You know, the whole thing about that story that really touches me is that you were in a time where you were feeling maybe a little lost, or, you know, is this really where
yeah,
I need to be going? And
yeah,
sometimes life finds us. You know, we're looking for things in life, but sometimes life finds us. Like, if it's really meant to
yeah,
be, it's meant to be. And it's kind of
yeah,
interesting how you were introduced to it, because to be brought into that production, like you said, the Taboo was part of his life. You know, that's an interesting way that you were brought in on a production about maybe George's life or his early beginnings on a time which is becoming your early beginning into the scene
yeah.
again, you know? So that really is so symbolic to me. It's quite unusual. I love that story.
Yeah, I ended up because I went traveling. I did something called the Camino de Santiago. It was like a bit of a kind of, I'm not religious or anything, but it was like a nice sort of spiritual kind of, it was just relaxing really, because I was so focused. My brain's a bit like, I'm always focused on music and moving forward and next and like that, and it can send you a bit loopy after a while. But if you just step back and just let everything go, it's sort of, it's like the law of attraction, isn't it? It just let all the bad go and the good things in, and eventually, you know, the good things come to you. You put all the good energy out there and all the good things. Like I say, I'm not religious, but there's definitely some periods of my life where I'm like, that's, you know, forks in the road where you're like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting, you know, and why that happened. Because in my brain I kind of checked out from music for a little bit,
Yeah.
but as soon as I did that, it was like someone went, no, don't do that, and kept phoning me. You know, you never know who's gonna ring you.
That's
It's quite
right.
funny.
That is right.
Yeah.
So from
Mm.
working with George, you know, you've been involved in this Bon Jovi tribute. So tell me more about that. It's kind of interesting
I didn't.
because I grew up in New York City
Mm,
area. Bon Jovi was in New Jersey. I mean, I have a very good friend, Spencer Drake. He was the artist on his logo. He was the art. He does the artwork for his first album. He's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They're all in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. There's a lot of connections to Bon Jovi that I'm kind of
mm,
connected with, but I'm not connected with Bon Jovi. But it's so
sure.
funny because growing up, the crowd, the girls that I would hang out with, half of them were huge Bon Jovi, and the other half were no heavy metal like me. So we would be like, "All right, we'll go to one concert. You go to one concert." Like, you know, we weren't
Yeah.
all equally Bon Jovi. So it's kind of interesting. He's got a huge catalog of music. So what was it like for you to be involved in the tribute band, knowing that your early beginnings were really kind of following him as a child?
Oh, it's great. It's like a dream come true, isn't it? And it's like playing all those solos and riffs that I worked so hard on as a kid, like all the Richie Sambora's riffs and solos that I'm such a huge fan of even now. I would love to meet him actually. I've never met him. I've met a couple of my heroes, but he's the one I've never met. And I think that would be pretty amazing. But yeah, it was great. And the band are really good. They do it really well. And they kind of represent the bands in a certain time period, maybe sort of 90s, 80s and 90s version of Bon Jovi. So I get to really kind of do that side of it. And it's so much fun. And I'm playing with them next week. I'm in Latvia. No, the week after next. And I was in Malta with them recently. So I've been playing with them since about 10 years. It's probably the longest thing I've done. But it's not my gig. It's someone else's. But what it is that I play with them all the time is because he doesn't like touring, which is weird. So they play a lot in the UK, and he's happy to do all those because he can go home. But when it comes to like anything abroad, it's me. I get the call. It's like it's just automatic now. They don't even ask him. They just go, oh yeah, don't forget, oh yeah, we're doing Latvia, so can you come and do that? So I always try and make it a priority to play with that band because it kind of feels that kind of thing that I love. Yeah, those songs.
That's
and
awesome. Out of those songs, I
mm,
mean, the huge catalog, what are the ones that I'm sure musicians are like, oh, I have to play this song again. What are the ones that you look forward to playing?
just I'm typically a fan of Slippery in New Jersey, those albums and Keep the Faith, and so anything from sort of that period, I'm very happy to play. We don't really play like anything post, the last 10 years. It's not
Okay.
really the
Yeah.
same thing anymore. And
Yeah. I
it's a
agree.
different band,
Yeah.
I know Richie's not in the band, it's a very different thing. But
Yes. Yeah.
but but probably up to sort of Have a Nice Day-ish, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Then we might play Have a Nice Day every now and again, and we do It's My Life, but like just some key ones from that era. But certainly, there is a catalogue of stuff which everyone wants to hear, and you have to play them. The prayers and
Oh, sure.
sometimes we put an odd cheeky song in that is like they wouldn't play anymore, which I think is really cool. Um, but that Bon Jovi probably don't play some of those old songs anymore. So it's nice to kind of exercise those songs. I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
They're all in it though, like Keep the Faith, and sometimes Dry County will go in.
That's
Lay Your
great.
Hands on Me's always in there. Live on a
Oh,
Prayer.
sure.
Always,
Yeah.
always. It's
The
basically
crowd
just a
must
greatest
go
hits set.
crazy, right? You must draw a huge crowd because
Uh,
there's so many Bon Jovi fans.
yeah, some of the gigs I've done. I mean, the gigs they do, it's like might as well be in Bon Jovi, like the size of it, and the tours I've done with them. Been hilarious. It was just going like we did Russia, and it was one of those gigs where they don't really, not many bands play Russia, and Bon Jovi ever did it in the late '80s once, and in this big festival thing, like Motley Crue, Scorpions and stuff, and they did it a few years ago because he was like he didn't realize the stadium was still there, so he did it again. But up until that point, no Bon Jovi, no one really plays Russia, and especially now, not going to do it now, are you? But it was an amazing time and talk, and everyone just I've never seen anything like it, like the size of the venues, what we were playing. I'm like, you might as well have been in Bon Jovi. It's like everyone just goes nuts for it. Like, wow, Tribute World's funny. I like it. I love Tribute
Yes.
World. It's
Yes.
but what I like about Bon Jovi, it's like because I just fit in with it so well because I know all those songs. So it was really easy for me, and I just had a great time doing it. But again, even doing that, you still learn. You're learning how to do band just because it's tribute. You're still performing. Doesn't matter. It's still learning how to present those songs.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
the guys doing the John Bon Jovi's are usually really good. You're only as good as that, really. So, but no, I love it. Big Richie fan. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. There's many different levels to tribute bands, and some of them actually even they dress the whole attire. I have good
Mm,
friends here in New York that travel around the U.S. They're actually called Last Child. They're an Aerosmith tribute band, but they actually
yeah.
dress the part. I mean, you literally think
Mhm.
Aerosmith is hitting the stage. So
Yeah, I
are
know.
you taking on the personas of
Yeah,
Bon Jovi?
yeah.
Oh wow,
Very
that's
much so.
awesome.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, kind of have to. I've got the cowboy hat and
Oh great.
I even had a guitar made, which is kind of modeled on one of his models from the 80s. So I'm really like, I'm quite invested with old Richie Sambora. I think he's quite wonderful,
That's
you know.
amazing.
So
Wow.
yeah, it's good to have that kind of, if you're going to do it. And that's the only tribute band I would kind of invest in.
Mhm.
I wouldn't really want to get involved with. I've been asked to do other ones like Brian Adams ones and stuff. I always say no because I'm not invested in it
I
in the
understand
same way.
that. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like Bon Jovi a lot. I have to, yeah, as well as other bands and stuff. But Aerosmith would be good fun. But I don't play like Joe Perry. I'm not really a Joe Perry fan, but I'm an Aerosmith fan.
Yeah.
So I think their songs are great.
Yeah, I totally get that. It's so great to hear the side of being in one of these bands. So many times, you're a participant or you're a fan or you have an album or you stream something or whatever. But to hear your side of it, I know a lot of people, and I've been backstage with some of their bands and stuff. There's sometimes incredible stresses that go on that the public never sees. And it's, not just equipment, but it's timing or it's following who's going on what's going on with what. So
Yeah.
what has been the biggest learning lesson from being either touring or handling, getting on stage, or what has been really the biggest eye opener as a musician, to go in a studio and cut it and everything can get all prettied up, but what has been really one of the struggles that you've learned with in regards to like live shows?
Just controlling your nerves and anxiety. That was always a big thing for me, and it's pretty frightening. It takes time. Even now, you get the goosebumps and stuff, but learning to make them into positive nerves and a positive experience. So when I go on stage now, I'm fine and relaxed. So it's not a flawless performance, but it's just I don't have that kind of and like with all the stress, like you said, all the stress and stuff that can go on backstage, timings and things like that. All about just keeping calm and figuring out the best way and strategies to do stuff. Keeping calm under pressure because it's very high pressure. It's so focused, high pressure for that moment. But all day and you're doing nothing. All you're thinking about is the gig in the evening. So yeah, you only play for an hour in the evening, but you've got the whole day to traveling. You're tired, so things can get a bit stressful. People can argue, but it's about how you deal with those situations. I think over the years I've just learned to
Yeah, that's so
just
important. And also not being able
focus.
to control the environment, like showing up at a
Yeah,
place and, it's not what you expected. Sometimes like you mentioned playing at festivals, all sorts of weathers happen and
yeah,
festivals, it's raining
yeah,
now or it's hot as hell,
yeah.
it's like, wow.
And timings, getting on the stage, getting off the stage. Yeah, just it's a lot of that. The playing bit is like the last thing to worry about.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the main thing to like worry about in terms of like it should be the last thing to worry about because it should be the thing to do best. And so when I go on stage, I want to know that I'm not worrying about a single thing because I know I can just get on stage, do my job, execute it, and do it well. Everything else is just blah 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 blah. But just getting on that stage, those people want to see you play those songs. I have not seen you before and want to give them the best show that they paid money to go and see it.
Yeah, that's so
How
great. Yeah. No, it's so true. And not just that, but your equipment, everything has got to be, looked at and everything.
yeah.
With all this said, I know that you're a songwriter and you're a producer. I want to be able to get to some of that. What aspects of that would you like to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, production and songwriting kind of tied in. It's the songwriting side has always kind of been part of my life. Like I'm not a Grammy or like that, but it's such an I'm a creative person too, where I see so many musicians. I just they just aren't. It's a job, and that's great. It is a job. Got to pay bills. That keeps the lights on in my house. So there's that side to it, but the creative side of it and the writing side, if I didn't have that, I would go crazy. And that's the bit that I really enjoy, piecing the puzzle together, music, formulas of music. So that's something I've always really enjoyed. I don't know if I'm really good at it, but I always enjoy it. Again, it's that thing, it's only when you look back and listen and go, oh, actually, that was pretty good. When you're in it at the time, it's really production side of it. I've just built a studio in my back garden. Actually. That sort of comes with that. And that's something I've learned being around producers and musicians. Because production's like different level, it can mean different things, but essentially you're like a gatekeeper almost, like someone to bounce, you're there to bounce off the bands or stuff like that. Self-producing is quite hard, but if you've kind of done it for a long time in terms of writing, you know what you want to hit sound, you've got a sound in your head, you want to get it onto disc, into a recorded format. It's learning how to do all that as well. That takes time. That's still something I'm learning. I really enjoy that side. I want to do more of it, produce bands, because kind of hear things and how they get structured. When I write songs, I know what good formulas are and what works with what. It's really important to sort of understand that aspect of it and what makes a song, what makes a good song. It's not a 20-minute guitar solo. It's melody and structure and chords and how that goes together. That's always something I've been really fascinated by. Then that goes back to like the Beatles. So I'm always writing.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and I prefer that. I almost prefer that to playing, if that makes sense. Which is weird. 'Cause that is playing forward. But I mean, rather than just being like some kind of technical guitarist, which I can be if I want to be, but some guys are just that. But I've always tried to. All my heroes are the whole thing. Like, big fan of, Nuno Betancourt, uh, and he's from Extreme. And everyone just takes away that he's a great guitarist, and he is a great guitarist, one of the best guitarists in the world. There's so much more to him than that, and there's so many layers to him, like producer, songwriter. Extreme have great songs. He's not just a wiggly guitarist. That was always what separated, um, for me. That's what separates great bands to kind of good bands. That you might have a great guitarist in the band, but your songs just so it doesn't really matter, does it? But if you're a great guitarist and you write good songs, you're onto a winner. And it always comes down to the songwriting where that gets missed. Uh, and that's why I was always a fan of songwriting and production, because that really is above everything. Guitar is just a tool for me to channel that wherever it is and to do. But for some people, they're just guitar heads. I'm not really. I am a guitar head, but there's just more. There's more to it. It's so much more. Such a wide spectrum. So all my heroes are like, they're producers, but they're incredible musicians, incredible songwriters, incredible producers. They're incredible, just the whole shebang. And that's what I would aspire to be. But I'll get there one day, maybe. I don't think you ever quite get there.
Well, you just said that you have built a studio in your backyard, so that sounds exciting. So, did you do
Well,
that
a
by
creative
yourself, or
space.
okay?
Yeah, well, I mean, my wife helped me. I'm not really much of a. My wife's the handyman.
Oh,
She's the one with
really?
the tools. Oh yeah, she's
DIY
great. She'll be
projects.
she'll be home in a minute. She'll be home in a minute. She'll probably like jump on. But yeah, she's the DIY person. So we
Oh,
bought this
wow.
house. And it was a mess, and I was panicking, going, "How do we do this?" And she could just visualize the house. She was like, "Don't worry, bit at a time. One room at a time." So we bought like a log cabin, just a small little 4x3 log cabin, and it's got it powered. It's not really like my studio, that's a strong word. It's a room like built that I can, my little, what you want to call it, like a man cave, my
Yes, a
guitars
jam
are, and I can
space.
go there. And it was important to have that. I was really like, I don't want it in the house. My house is my house. Walk down the road, stand my patio, and then go, right, I'm going to write a song today. Okay, it's still in my home, but it's there. And a lot of people do that. A lot of people have home studios, a lot of big guys, because studios are expensive,
Yes, yes, they
and
are.
no one has the budgets. No one has the budgets anymore, so they build these studios in their back garden.
That's right.
Excellent.
Yeah. So, have you had many bands reach out to you to ask you to do any producing for them? Are you doing any coaching, or
Um,
what is the idea
Not,
on that?
no, again, it's still like quite a new thing. I've been producing, so I've got a new project out that I do it for me at the moment, and I have mixed other bands, but more on a smaller scale, just to sort of get. So 'cause that's a very good thing. When you do it for you, that's one thing, but when you certainly have. Well, I've got a new project that's thrash metal. I decided to do a '90s thrash metal project. Um,
Thrash metal?
a few Yeah,
Oh,
just why not?
wow.
And it's like comedy. It's comedy thrash metal. It's a band in the UK called Lowe and Day. And my friend Day, not the best friend of the parade, was like, they had a band, they were kids, in the early 90s, like Megadeth. It's all like that. It's Megadeth. And they want to revive it again, but they asked me to produce it and play on it. Right, co-write. It's called Uncle Dave's Biscuit Barrel. So if you want to check it out, it's got a new EP coming out in September.
Oh, wow. What is the name
Uh,
of it?
it's called Uncle Dave's
Uncle Dave's.
Biscuit Barrel.
Uncle Dave's what?
Biscuit Barrel. Biscuit
Biscuit
as in
barrel.
biscuit.
Oh, wow. That is so
Exactly.
interesting.
It's
Wow.
comedy.
It is.
And,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, it's
And
kind
their
of,
and their
yeah.
LP is coming out?
Well, we had one EP come out about a year ago, and then we're doing another EP. We've done it. I've mixed it, mastered it, and it comes out in September.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah,
So what
it's
does that sound
September the
like?
6th.
It's the comedy because of
It's
the lyrics, maybe?
Yeah. So we take the music seriously, but the lyrics are kind of tongue in cheek
Oh,
about weird
wow.
subjects. Very British humour is the only way to
Oh,
describe it.
wow. Monty Python?
Yeah, you know what? Monty Python metal. If you want to call it that, I think that's a great. I think that hit the nail on the head. Monty
Wow.
Python thrash metal.
I can't wait
That's
to
great.
hear it.
I'm the Monty Python of metal. Yeah, I'm gonna say that to the guy that filmed this.
Oh, good. Now you're coining it. You can coin it with what I call it.
Monty Python thrash metal. It's very
Wow.
that
That
actually.
is so
Yeah,
cool. So
yeah, and it was to be not. It wasn't about the money. It was just about doing something that's really
fun.
creative.
Yeah, creative and fun. I bet you it
Yeah.
catches on. Do you know what the fan base will be for that?
Well, it's definitely an older fan base, and of the time. And like I said, there's a few comedy. You like go into it. There's a few comedy thrash metal bands about in the UK. There's Lawnmower Death. There's one called Hailstorm. They're like one of the newer ones. So there's Hailstorm, isn't there? They call it
Oh, sure.
Hailstorm,
Oh,
like
yeah.
the beer, like Hailstorm. They're quite good. That's like pirate metal, but it's kind of got that vibe to it. Yeah, it's got all that kind of stuff to it.
So we'll be able to
Yeah.
stream that when that comes out.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
there's already one EP out now if you want to listen to it, and then then there's the second EP. So it's all on Spotify. We haven't done any physical copies yet, but we will do. We're still kind of building it up, but it's good fun, harmless fun.
I'm going to look for that. Is that on YouTube?
Yeah, or on Spotify.
Okay. All right, good. I
There's a
know that
video.
you
There's
have another
a
band called Just a Ride. So
yeah,
tell me a bit about that because when we end the interview, we're going to be playing a song from that.
yeah. So just to write, unfortunately, the band's not going anymore. But it was like the reason I wanted you to hear that one, and it's a bit more what I'm about, and that's why I gave you that song. Was it was a song we did an album, and I produced that. I didn't mix it, but I produced it, and it was like just an idea I had. I just was like, I want to do this type of band, so I wrote an album with a singer, and it turned out great. So I'm always, even though the band's not going anymore, we sort of broke up last year because it was just so hard. It's really hard, trying to do it, especially when there's no budgets. Um, it was really cool, it was really nice it was a project that we really enjoyed. And, but unfortunately we couldn't get it any further, but it's one I'm really proud of.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
the song. It's really incredible. I really love the song. And it's interesting too because I love watching you guys. Like you sent me the YouTube and I'm able to see you guys on stage and performing together and
Yeah.
it's really exciting to see that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was good, but I don't think Britain was quite. It's nice, when you sort of said, "Oh, we have more traction in America than what over here."
Yeah, maybe that's true. But you
Yeah,
raise a good point, Drew, because with streaming, all you have to do now to push stuff is to promote the streaming of it. Because of
yeah,
the internet, you don't even have to tour. So many guys tell me that. Like, I can't tour right now, but our stuff is still up on YouTube. People are
yeah,
still listening to it,
yeah,
So,
yeah. It keeps it alive, But the downside is that you don't get paid for it, do you? And so you have to tour to make money.
correct.
But then touring's really expensive now. But it's a bit of a you can't
Yes.
win.
Yes. Believe it or not, Drew, I talked to so many guys. They're all in the same, they call it like we're in the circle, We're stuck in the circle because they have music they want to play, but it's too expensive to tour. And a lot of them, especially those that are even in the UK, I spoke with someone recently that he's in Germany and the other guys are in Sweden. And just to get them all together costs money, It's like impossible. COVID really changed things in some way. It was either a pro or it was a con. It either built a band up or it broke a band down. What was your experience with that?
Well, I did that album, the Just the Right album in COVID. So
Oh,
it's in
good.
terms, it was a very creative COVID for me. Because we just got really excited and did the record. It didn't break the band down at all. If anything, it's the opposite. What broke the band down was like going out and touring it and realizing that it was really expensive and do it,
Yeah.
But the exciting part was writing the record. We kind of did it like this over Zoom. There was a gap where we got let out, like they let everyone out again.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and then went back into lockdown again. So it's funny. It was pretty interesting, really. So
Wow.
it was great for me. So COVID, but I lost a lot of work. But it was in terms of like being an actual musician, I lost work. But in terms of creatively, it was actually quite cool.
Well, the band was born during COVID and it's called Just a Ride. So we will be playing that as the interview ends. Just promote all of your social media, promote your website, let everyone know how they can reach you and listen to your music.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my main kind of website is drewlowmusic.co.uk. Or my Instagram, it's Drew Lowe Music. So I mean, Instagram's the one, isn't it? Everyone uses that and it feeds everything else. Um, and that has links to everything. That will have all my work and everything I've done in that. The new project is UncleDavesBiscuitBarrel.com, and to sort of check out the bit of 90s thrash metal, which is good fun.
That
And
is
Just
so
a
great.
Ride is, I don't know if the website's set up for Just a Ride actually, but you can, if you just type in Just a Ride, can't bring you the stuff. But my guitar, music, such stuff, Drew Lowe Music. Check it out.
Drew Love. Okay.
DREWLOWE Music. So,
Music. Very good. Very great. Very good. Well, it's a pleasure to have you on. It's awesome to meet
no,
you.
thank you for asking.
Yeah, this is really a great interview. So exciting. We're going to roll out with Just a Ride. The song is called I Wanna Know, and this is Drew Lowe. Thank you so much, Drew.